everything's going to be perfect. The 64% of the people that are living paycheck to paycheck, it'll probably go down to 63.9. You know, it's only going to get worse. Yeah, look at the Wall Street Journal. Trade deficit hits record. Tracking trends is the understanding of where we are, how we got here to see where we're going. So you could thank that people call presidents that sold this country out to get paid off. Why would anybody pay a warmongering piece of garbage like little Billy Clinton $300,000 an hour to bullshit at the Goldman Sachs gang or any of the other conferences he was brought to speak to? It's payoff. This is the slime ball that gave us NAFTA. Oh, you have a trade deficit? You mean you used to make products in America? No. You were going to make them in Mexico. Oh, and you're going to bring China into the World Trade Organization? Wonder why we have a trade deficit. You look at China's GDP before that, every time he got caught with his pants down, it's bombs away over Baghdad. The murderous little Billy Clinton, another arrogant boy that if you called him out man to man, he wouldn't know whether to piss his shit. But boy, is he tough with all his guys around him and kills a lot of people. That every time he got caught doing something, killing people all across Iraq, and Madeline, not all that bright, the former UN ambassador on Leslie Stahl, 60 Minutes, Leslie Stahl asks her, is the price of the death of 500,000 Iraqi children because of Bill Clinton's actions worth the price? And she said, yes, it is. That's the Bill Clinton that brought us into the World Trade Organization. People forget about the Battle of Seattle. The Battle of Seattle took place in 1999. They were bringing China into the World Trade Organization, and they were having a WTO meeting in Seattle. Some 46,000 people took to the streets to protest bringing them into the WTO. But like they always do, they have these agents provocateurs, these guys dressed in black in perfect shape, you know, smashing a couple of windows and blowing up a car. That's what became the news. Everybody forgot about why the people were protesting, because they knew that we'd be losing our jobs. China back then, it was a nothing. Again, you look at their GDP from 1970. They come into the World Trade Organization officially 2 weeks after 9/11, and boom, their GDP escalates.
It just skyrocketed at that point.
So they sold us out. So you're asking me, you don't have to look any further than this. Oh, America's GDP, only 70% of it is consumer spending. Only 11% of our GDP is manufacturing. I can't figure out why we have such a big trade deficit. Maybe we should ask the White House. When we're talking about the government system, it's a crime syndicate. And so let's go back. The Federal Reserve dumped in, according to the Levy Institute at Bard College, $29 trillion to the central banks, to the banks. 29 trillion. We're too big to fail. I'm Jamie Dimon. I only make $35 million a year. You're a piece of crap. All you are is a plantation worker of Slavelandia. We're too big to fail. All right? You're talking about the bankster system? Now let's go back into the facts. Hey, they just raised interest rates again, huh? One of our forecasts is a office building bust. They're bragging that the office occupancy rate now in America at the top 10 cities, according to Castle with a K, is over 50%. It's 50.4%. Okay, wait a minute. Half the people aren't going back to work. And the ones that are going back, they're only going back maybe 2 or 3 days a week. All the businesses that depended on commuters, they're out of business. The dry cleaners, the people who used to go to lunch. Hey, no more happy hours. What about all those businesses? Oh, and now your office occupancy rate. Now all those leases are coming up. And they're saying, I don't need 15, 20 stories. I only need 3. Let's go back to raising interest rates. And again, this thing was going down in 2019. In New York, east side, west side, all around the town, for rent. They overbuilt. 100%. Now, interest rates went up. Oh, you got these variable rate mortgages, right? Oh, and now less people are taking out leases, and the other ones are cutting way back. The banks funded this stuff, right? Oh, and the banks also are involved in this stuff. They're also investors in this stuff. There's going to be an office building bust crash that's going to bring down. No one is talking about it. Again, now interest rates are going up, and these are variable rate mortgages. And then you got all these junk bonds and this stuff. So this thing is going to go down really big. But don't worry about it. They'll bail out the banks because the banks are in control of our country. The BS they're putting out there is going to turn these into apartments. No, you're not. The stuff, everything according to the data, buildings built in the last 50 years, you can't turn into apartments. No, that's a lot of BS. And talking about how they keep lying to us, remember they said that inflation was temporary? I'm making this point because the Federal Reserve is in control of our country. We have the former head of the Federal Reserve that is now our Treasury Secretary. How can people be so blind to see this? And by the way, the scumbag that gave us the Federal Reserve is the same guy who put us into World War I and gave us the federal income tax, Woodrow Wilson. There was no federal income tax before this. And now what is it, 40, 50%, depending on what kind of money you're making? So what I'm saying is, and then you look at the budget that they just passed, the $1.7 trillion, over half goes to the military-industrial complex and intelligence complex. As I say, when all else fails, they take you to war. That's what they're doing now. This war in Ukraine,
yes,
they just keep ramping it up and ramping it up and ramping it up. America goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. That was John Quincy Adams. But now America goes anywhere and destroys anything. We have over 900 military bases throughout the world. We're opening up 4 new military bases now in the Philippines. I'm sure that we all care about what goes on in the Philippines. And my God, if China overtook Taiwan, I don't know how I'd ever sleep another day in my life, because this has only been going on since the Ming Dynasty and before.
Yes, exactly.
There were 2.5 million lost jobs. All right, now let's go to the other facts. In December, November, they started firing temporary workers. They fired 35,000 temporary workers, temp workers in December. Wait a minute, that's the holiday season when you're hiring them, and you fired 35,000? Oh, and when you look at the numbers, retail sales are way down compared to where they thought they were going to go. And you're telling me the economy is going up and jobs are going up? And in January, which is one of the biggest months where you start firing people, you tell me over 500,000 people were hired? Oh no, those are adjustable rate assessments by the Labor Department.
It's
you mean the
ridiculous.
same Labor Department that adjusted them last January and were off by over 100,000 jobs that they said were created that didn't create them, that are now creating this one? Again, this was done just before Biden's State of the Union speech, where they could brag about how good the economy is doing. The numbers are a total farce. Again, we're looking at your trade deficits. The equity markets have no relationship at all to the real world. You have 1% of the people, 1% out of 332 million Americans own over 50% of the equity markets. They own 54%. When you put the 10% in, they own 90%. The billionaires from 2020 got $27 trillion richer, according to Oxfam.